The Atlantic has just decided to fire a conservative writer on its site. Kevin Williamson is his name, and previously he was an op-ed writer for National Review. Well, I guess everyone's an op-ed writer for National Review. But nonetheless, this all started when some of his tweets from the past came to everyone's attention. Apparently in those tweets, he had talked about the issue of abortion. And since he comes from a very conservative perspective, he had this to say. So his firing last month had already drawn scrutiny over past tweets in which he stated that the law should treat abortion like any other homicide, and that for punishment, I have hanging more in mind. Those tweets have since been deleted. So when that happened, the editor-in-chief for The Atlantic decided not to fire him. So his name is Jeffrey Goldberg, and he essentially said, look, we can't judge people based on their worst tweets. And I actually agree with him on that. All of us at some point have probably tweeted something that we regret and don't actually mean.
So, no.
Okay. So the editor-in-chief wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. However, it turns out that Media Matters did a little digging and found some of Kevin Williamson's comments from back in 2014 during a National Review podcast. Now we have that podcast for you now, so you can take a listen and judge for yourselves, and then I'll give you an update on what Williamson's fate is. I kind of already told you, but still.
And someone challenged me on my views of abortion, saying if you really thought it was a crime, you would support things like, life in prison, no parole, for treating it as a homicide. And I do support that. In fact, as I wrote, what I have in mind is hanging. We already have degrees of culpability and punishment, or other sorts of homicide cases. We have, including some laws that I don't agree with. Like laws that enhance penalties for, murder when it involves a government official or police officer, something like that. Hate crimes laws, things like that. But we also make distinctions between certain kinds of murders in certain cases. The shockingness and the cruelty of the crime, it makes a difference. Two guys get in a fight in a bar and one of them pulls out a gun and shoots the other, is treated differently from some, guy kidnaps a 90-year-old woman and tortures her and murders. Yeah, and that's okay. So, whereas you and I don't think agree quite on the underlying issue of abortion, or at least the degree of criminality. I think we can agree on that there's certainly reasonable cases to be made for differentiating. My broader point here is, of course, that I am, as I'm kind of squishy on capital punishment in general, but that I'm absolutely willing to see abortion treated like a regular homicide under the criminal code. Sure.
It makes a lot of sense. He's so pro-life that he would like to see women who've had abortions hung, or hanged, I should say. So after that podcast came to light and Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief for The Atlantic, had a conversation with Williamson, Goldberg decided to in fact fire him. So let me give you Goldberg's reasoning, and this came in the form of a memo that was sent out to everyone at The Atlantic. The language he used in this podcast and in my conversations with him in recent days made it clear that the original tweet did in fact represent his carefully considered views. He continued to say, the tweet was not merely an impulsive, decontextualized, heat of the moment post, as Kevin had explained it. Furthermore, the language used in the podcast was callous and violent. This runs contrary to The Atlantic's tradition of respectful, well-reasoned debate and to the values of our workplace.
So Jeffrey Goldberg's getting a lot of heat, of course, from a lot of different directions. From liberals initially saying you should have never hired this guy in the first place, and then you've got conservatives now saying this is an outrage and this is the thought police, etc. I mean, we just want to hang some women, and you guys are being all thought policey about it. So let me be among the few people who says that I think Jeffrey Goldberg probably got it exactly right. So what I mean by that is the tweet from 2014. You got to have a really high barrier for firing someone over an old tweet. So the fact that he didn't fire him after that, I think was the right move. People tweet stupid stuff all the time, and it's in the past. And if he's past it, no problem. But to me, the most important part of Goldberg's quote was that he talked to him. That's what we ask for on the show all the time. Hey, instead of just firing people, have a conversation, bring them in, hear them out, whether it's left wing or right wing, and see what their current ideas are, and then you might even want to do that publicly at some point and go, and if Kevin Williamson has a different stance now, maybe he explains it, not in like a mea culpa and forced apologies, etc., but like, hey, this is what I used to think, this is what I think now. And it turns out Goldberg did have that conversation with him, and he's like, oh no, he still believes those ridiculous, outrageous things, and if he does, then he's got to go.
Right. I'm not arguing that we should lock up this guy for saying what he said. I think that the Atlantic is completely, so that guy originally, the guy with the beard down here that looks like one of those like bald guys with like the magnet hair that you can move from the top to the bottom, that guy. I think that guy is totally within his rights to say what he said. I totally get like his almost like modest proposal approach to it, but the Atlantic gets to choose who their writers are, and they get to choose what their editorial stance is and how they present ideas, and they're totally within their rights to disagree with people that formulate and present ideas in this way.
I just feel like there's not enough. I want to know who does the research for all of these organizations, not only the Atlantic, the New York Times. Other publications have run into the same thing where they hire someone to be an opinion writer. Then, of course, the internet does the digging and something comes out, and then they're forced to fire them after the fact. But like, shouldn't that be, especially if you're a media organization, a journalistic organization, that you do the research before you sign the contract, give someone a paycheck?
I hear you, Alona, but no one does research as well as the internet.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right. So, and it might be Media Matters in this case, etc. But once people start digging, right, they dig and dig and dig until they get something. And so, in that light, one more note of mixed feelings about this. So I say Goldberg's right because I wouldn't hire someone or want to keep someone who thinks we should hang women who had abortions. I think that's a monstrous thought, right?
That's a lot of state-sponsored executions, by the way.
You just hear him disappear up his own.
But I like that he was like, I don't know, I'm kind of squishy on capital punishment.
But when it comes to women, I'd like to hang them.
Yeah, but I think that's
really
a really
not sure where I stand on it.
I think that's such an important point because it's, when it comes to, he went on this long spiel about all these different types of, homicide, murder, premeditated, whatever, different standards. He agrees with it. But when it comes to women and abortion, hanging. Like, that's what I want. I want to see them hanged.
Yeah.
It's just like an unfunny stand-up bit that they just want to be like a shock jock on. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, and I've been there. So, and I'm going to get to that in a second. The reason I say I'm slightly mixed though is because, look, if he says, I think it's a life, so I think it's a crime, I get it, that actually is intellectually consistent. If he says we should execute the women because it's a homicide, and just stopped it there, I would find that opinion to be outrageous and horrific, but at least I understand it on an intellectual level. When he gets to the hanging, there's a certain gratuitous joy in that that seems particularly misogynistic. And that's what puts me over the top and goes, no, there's something off with this guy, which then leads me to my other point, which is you're trying to hire a conservative, and I get the impulse to do that. Good luck to you, brother. You're gonna find a conservative in this country that hasn't said or done something horrific. I mean, that's not the world we live in today.
I saw him as just drawing two columns together. He has the one that's about if it's abortion is murder, murder is the death penalty, and another column where he's like, when we do the death penalty, why do we put someone in a chair and inject them with stuff? We should accept it for as brutal as it is and hang them. But by putting all those things together, I think the Atlantic is totally within their rights to say like, whoa, you just said we should hang mothers who've been through some crap.
But I think the problem is more of the propensity within the media to want to make everything equal, right?
Yes.
Give everything a fair side. And so when you're saying like, we want to put a good conservative onto our roster, rather than just finding someone who is smart, who writes and says things that are nuanced, you want to make sure like, oh, do they have some positions that we consider to be really right or really conservative that might be like a punch to someone's face, and then you think that that's justifiable.
Right, and then in your search for the token conservative or token liberal, whatever you're doing, right? Unfortunately, what ends up happening is you find someone who's on the extreme end of the spectrum that doesn't actually represent the thoughts and beliefs of the majority of conservatives. I hope, by the way, I'm right on this, that the majority of conservatives believe that women who have abortions should be hanged. But again, when you look for that conservative perspective for your paper or whatever publication you have, I think that you're gonna end up running into the wrong people.
But maybe that'll be kicked up. That editorial will be kicked up being so polemic in the Facebook algorithm.
But it gets so many clicks.
But that's exactly right. But actually, that phenomenon has been around a long time because I know it, because I lived it. Look, a part of the reason I say that is because there is a bit of a competition to out shock jock one another when you're a conservative. I did that, and I wrote terrible things when I was a conservative because the idea is like, oh, I'll show you, I could be an even bigger dirtbag than the other conservative, and because that is what is rewarded. That's when people go, oh my God, this guy is bold. He's gonna hang women in the public square. Go get him, and that's what helped Kevin Williamson to rise in the first place. And then it caught the Atlantic's attention. Then they hire him, and they realize, oh, that's why conservatives get popular in this country.
Right.
You just watched the video by the Young Turks, the home of the revolution. If you'd like to get the full show, come join us and become a member. tytnetwork.com/join.